and welcome to Highbrow, Lowbrow. I'm your host, Shaun. With me here is Roun Sensei. Each week we get together to discuss a well-regarded, highly received film against a cheesy blockbuster.
Basically, an artsy-fartsy film versus a mindless good time. So each episode we pick a genre, one of us do. This time, Shaun picks something so weird. What did you pick?
I picked Ghosts.
And what did you pick for your selection?
So first up, I picked Uncle Boonmee Who Can Recall His Past Lives. Cheers.
Cheers.
The 2011 Palme D'Or winner, Uncle Boonmee Who Can Recall His Past Lives, is about Uncle Boonmee, who's afflicted with kidney disease and is preparing himself for death. He has assembled his relatives in the countryside, convinced he will die within a few days. The ghost of his wife appears and offers guidance on his journey into the beyond, while his estranged son materializes in the guise of a jungle creature. Surrounded by his loved ones, Uncle Boonmee reflects on memories of his past lives, and he decides he must visit a special place before he goes. So, Ron, what did you think of this highbrow pick?
Oh my goodness, where do we begin? The cinematography is really well done. I like the steady shots. I like the color especially. It looks very, very natural, but at the same time, it's one of those artsy fartsy films that lingers too much. It's kind of self-indulgent in that way. In terms of acting, I don't even think that they are real actors. I think I don't know the production part of this, but it feels like he took like real people, because sometimes they'll say a line and it just kind of, there's no emotion to it.
Yeah,
I can see that if you get like an inexperienced actor and you just like make them say lines. I don't know if that's the case, but that's how I felt watching. It's very interesting. It's just some of the things there are just kind of it's so weird. Like it's the ghost of the wife comes in, and in the beginning obviously they're all shocked, but then they kind of just accept it, and then immediately in the same night, in the same dinner table, some gorilla-looking motherfucker with red glowing eyes comes in and sits with them. It turns out it was his son.
Just starts hanging out with them and just starts palling around.
I mean, initially they're shocked, but after that, nobody questions anything. And the next day, they go on as if nothing happened. That should be the first thing you talk about with your neighbors and your friends. Like, bro, last night was insane. There was a ghost started eating with us and a jungle creature, but no mention of that at all.
I think it was entirely intentional. I mean, it's supposed to set this precedent of establishing the ghost world or the spirit world as integral or as like commonplaces, like, you know, whatever, like oh, my old friends are visiting me from the beyond. That's like a normal thing. That's par for the course. And I think also to go with the idea of the actors not necessarily being actors, I think there was, I feel like an authentic feel to them, whereas like they didn't play to emotion, but play to their natural selves a little bit. Whereas like, if you saw those actors and you saw them acting really hard, you would like attribute it to movie. But when I saw those actors, I would see like my relatives and how my relatives would like interact with each other. You know?
I don't agree with that. I've seen Filipino films that are very well acted, and I don't know if any Thai people out there that have seen the movie, let us know. But I felt that it was so stiff. I don't know if I've met some Thai people over here, they don't act like that.
Yeah, but like older people like generally, I feel like act like that. My uncles or my aunts, you know, if they got around the table, they would be talking like that with each other. Maybe,
but not a very stiff kind of thing. Like one part of it when the the fucking black Sasquatch, red-eyed thing comes over, and the sister just kind of stood up and walked over to the balcony or something, and she just looked ahead, and I was like, oh wait, is there another guest at the dinner table? But no, she was actually kind of emoting like something was up there, you know, something was happening there, and we were supposed to take that as like she's in reflection of some sort, because then she comes back and kind of accepts the situation or something.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a dressing down in terms of like performance. It was very sort of a very reserved performance. I think it does ride the line of being stiff, but also being, like, I would say unacted, but also being a little bit more authentic. Like, they weren't trying to play for anything. They were just sort of existing in the moment. Now, you could attribute that to like stiff or woodenness, but I did feel like there was a certain level of authenticity, because people don't act big. You know, we're so used to people acting big in movies.
No, you don't have to act big. You just have to act well. The whole thing seems very authentic. The cinematography, the costumes, the way everything looks, even the special effects of the gorilla thing. It was very creepy. Mm. And it's the acting that took me out, because I'm like, looks like they don't know what they're doing. And it took me out and made me realize that I'm watching a movie. You know, so these are just my comments, but at the same time, if you look at going to that dream sequence where it was just a random thing. There was an ugly princess, and she goes to a pond, and this catfish started talking to her, and then they started fucking. Like, straight up, yeah. The catfish was fucking her.
Yeah. Well,
she got catfish.
It was a catfish gangbang a little bit.
Yeah.
There's multiple catfish. Yeah.
Now, is that... Because maybe we're missing something. Obviously, it's playing for ties. Is that like an actual kind of fable, kind of story where a princess slept with a catfish, kind of like Zeus turning into a dolphin and raping women? You know, is that like a mythological kind of tale?
Yeah, it's definitely a very trying film. I think you're right. It does come off a little stiff, and there's not really a conflict you can sort of revolve yourself around. I typically interpret it as like the slow acceptance of death and the blurring of lines between death and life. You know, especially with the wife as the ghost. And then how Uncle Boonmee sort of compares what he did in the past and why death is coming upon him. How other people, like his son, who turned into the gorilla monster thingy.
Which is why. What the hell was that?
Yeah. It's a really sort of strange, bizarre movie that walks the line between death and life
And what the fuck.
And what the fuck. Yes, definitely. What the fuck. And sort of just walks it in a very calm, sort of contemplative manner. It's very unconventional for a movie. For people who want to enjoy a film that has a relaxed pace, that is very thoughtful and very contemplative, and just exists as this journey to death, and not as... That's another good point too, is that it's a journey to death, to the afterlife, but that's not filled with fear or scariness. I mean, it's hinted at, but it's more. But you accept the spiritual under like afterlife creatures, and you accept death. I think it helps to accept both those things as natural occurrences of life, which is like nice and good, but it also is a pretty difficult movie to sometimes get into, because it is so foreign, and it is really unconventional, somewhat to a fault, because you're like, what am I really watching? What am I really trying to enjoy or get out of this film? So, Ron, what was the movie you ended up choosing for Ghosts?
I went kind of, I like the obscure kind of films that I've been hearing. A lot of people are praising it. It's called The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Released in 2016, The Autopsy of Jane Doe stars Emile Hirsch and Brian Cox as father and son coroners who experience supernatural phenomena while examining the body of an unidentified woman. So, Shaun, first impressions.
So, I thought this was a fairly enjoyable film. I thought the Emile Hirsch does a relatively good job. I like the dad a lot. The dad is a very fun character. The girlfriend is sort of a throwaway character, and the main villain, the Jane Doe of the series, has a lot of mystique and ominous to her. The mystery grows as the story continues on.
Those were really the good parts of the film, and the scares are actually very authentic. It didn't do a lot of the jump scares. In the beginning, they kind of did one jump scare, and then the girlfriend goes, "It's too easy," which is kind of like the film saying, "Oh, well, this is too easy to do, so we're not going to do this." But I feel like the third act, kind of, because of the desire to tie it all up together, there was a lot of exposition. Like suddenly they're all like Batman and Robin. Like, oh, this is why this is Leviticus. Look, it's Leviticus. Like 27.
Yeah.
And then boom, one guy has the Bible already ready to go with Leviticus 27, and then suddenly they're figuring it out, and now, oh, actually, she's. What if she's innocent? We didn't need the exposition. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it's the producer. Maybe it's a part of the writing. Like, come on, maybe we gotta spoon feed the audience because they're stupid. A lot of audiences are stupid, but it would have been classier to keep it ambiguous somewhat.
All right. I don't know if this is necessarily a disagreement, but I would say that while they didn't need all the exposition, they did need a bit of a turn or some sort of acknowledgement of the sentiment behind the Jane Doe corpse thing. Like, she's an evil thing, but you never really get a motive behind her evil because they sort of pose it as she was a witch and she's wronged. But then they're trying to absolve her of it, right? And so they sort of take away the blame from her because it was bad people doing these bad things to her. But then she ends up being bad. And that's fine, but it would have been nice to have some sort of motivation or some sort of idea behind that motivation.
Or it could have been introduced earlier on,
Yeah.
Like maybe the son or the girlfriend was super interested in in witches, and then they could have kind of hinted about the Salem witch trials, how all of the people there were innocent and blah blah blah, and and then so suddenly when they were actually doing it, it's good to kind of tie it up a little bit, show Leviticus and all that, but dude, stop with the whole everything was ready.
Yeah,
there was like a whole exposition there about like stuff, and
the in-depth detail isn't necessarily needed on my part, but I want to compare it to another film, The Ring.
Okay.
The Ring I liked a lot because they gave.
But that was the perfect way of doing it.
Yeah. They painted the Ring girl as this beleaguered character, and they were trying to save her and help her so she wouldn't kill other people. And then they flipped it, and they planted the seeds earlier on by confirming your idea that she was evil the entire time. They go, why'd you help her? She's an evil person. Like they were right to initially cast her out. And when you realize that turn and you're like, oh shit, she is evil, you're like, it added a whole new layer to the film. With this film,
because there was a solution, right?
Yeah.
Like the solution was to stop the ghost, the Ring girl.
Yeah.
To stop her because she was tortured or whatever,
Yeah.
killed wrongly.
And you can save her.
And then, okay, wow, yeah, we freed her soul.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, no, bitch. No.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, so that was it. Here, there was no turn like that. There was no like.
And I think that's what I was missing. Yeah.
There was a little bit when the dad sacrificed himself, and even then the witch still killed the son.
Yeah.
But
it
wasn't really. I don't know. It happened too quick.
It felt like a wasted sacrifice.
And there was no victory. There was really no. In the ring, there was a victory, and you're like, oh wow, it really ended in.
They got it. They won.
And then you're in a way you're kind of like, oh wow, this is I've seen this before. Yeah, right. They figured it out. They stopped it. But then no.
Yeah.
The actual climax was coming, and here there wasn't really a setup that tricked the audience. At least not. Maybe if you've never seen anything like that, you would have bought into it. But for any horror fans, you would have seen it a mile.
So, Ron, let's get to the final words we have on these two films. All right, so with this one, I ended up picking Uncle Boonmee, Who Can Recall His Past Lives. I think it is a little bit of a difficult movie to get into, and you have to have a very certain mindset going into it, but it can be rewarding. It's definitely different and interesting in its own way, and how it walks this line of supernatural and natural life and death and takes this meandering sort of contemplative path towards both of them is a unique experience. And I think people can enjoy it and get quite a bit from it. But I will say, go into it with that mindset, because it is a very slow, contemplative, thoughtful film that can be challenging.
I'd give the upper hand to Boonmee just because it's very original. The cinematography is really good. Although I'll never watch it again. And then Autopsy of Jane Doe, it's a fun movie to watch if you want something new, a new horror flick. You can watch it. I can watch it again with other people. But so I'm inclined to kind of say that it's a draw with a little bit of an upper hand to Boonmee, but because I'm never gonna watch it again, that's where it's a draw. So it's it's like kind of like it's okay. It's like not really invested in either one.
Yeah, a little bit the same for me too. But I will say, Uncle Boonmee is an experience that I would recommend. But to Ron's point, if you're hanging out with friends on a Friday night, you could put on Autopsy of Jane Doe and sort of have a better time with that. Yeah. But that's what we thought of those two films. Be sure to tune in next week to see who was right.
Shaun or Ron?